So to set up our route schedule, if we haven't already started to play around with it, we're going to go to the route schedule button on the top of the toolbar. Oh, actually, we have someone who's just connecting, so I'm just going to wait just a second.
Okay.
Nella, whenever you're ready, just let me know when you can see my screen and we'll start for you. All right, we're going to go ahead and continue on here. Now, from our route schedule, we do have kind of a similar layout you've seen throughout the rest of the software, like the customer list, where we do have a line for you to start your data entry, and then the top row is where we can filter or sort from what we've set up. So we could filter or sort on our frequencies or our routes. But we actually start our data entry on the first line here. But before we can enter in any route stops, we have to double-click in the frequency field, and we need to set up our service frequencies. Now, depending on your company, this will vary on how we use the frequencies. Some of the standard ones I'll go through and set up. A lot of our customers use maybe a weekly service, which would simply reoccur once every 7 days. We could have a bi-weekly, which would be once every 14, or every other week. We also could have a monthly. Now, there's a couple different ways we could use a monthly frequency. I'm just going to put monthly-1 to show you the first way to handle a monthly frequency. And that's simply by using, again, a length of days. And I recommend using 28 days if you're going to use that for a monthly frequency. Just because if we set up a customer on a monthly frequency, let's say if we used every 30 days and that customer's scheduled service date was a Friday every month, if we use every 30 days, eventually that's going to hit a Saturday or Sunday. And if you're not paying attention to change it, you may miss it. By using every 28 days, if we set that customer up under monthly 1 for Friday, it's always going to be on a Friday every 4 weeks. The other way we could do a monthly frequency is using the new part of the software where we have the monthly selection. I'm just going to do monthly 2. I'm going to leave my length of days blank. I'm going to go ahead and check use monthly selection.
Hi, I'm here. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. We're just getting going. And for the monthly 2, again, I'm not going to use the length of days. I'm just going to check off the months I want this to reoccur. If I want this to reoccur every month on the first Monday or the second or third or fourth or last whatever day of the week. So if I want this to be the last Monday of the months that are selected or the first, I would set that up accordingly.
Now, Michael, do you have to, when you set it up that way, do you have to select the use interval settings?
Not at all, no.
Okay.
That'll lead me to my next monthly, which would be a monthly 3, just to show you the 3 different ways we can do a monthly. And I can just use monthly selection and check the months I want. This would be an example of a every month service, but you could obviously check if it was maybe every other month. You could do a bi-monthly and then check the certain months you need. If we leave the interval settings blank, this allows us on a per customer level to control the interval setting when we set up the route. And I'll demonstrate that in a moment, but basically we could put a customer on this monthly schedule, reoccurring every month, and then when we set up a stop, that stop can then be the first whatever day of the week or the last whatever day of the week for the months that are selected. And that can be done on a per customer level again. Now there are many different combinations. If we want a simple interval setting that works on a monthly basis, I could do monthly, use interval settings, and do not use monthly selection, and this will then reoccur every month on the first, second, or third, whatever those frequency is, and then whatever day of the week you select. So this would be maybe a monthly, I'm going to put first Thursday or FT. So we could do something like that. And then, but if we do it that way with the interval settings, for every different day of the week we need to allocate for, we'd have to have a different frequency. I could also create maybe a one-time or a off-route or off-schedule delivery or basically a one-time service or a call-in. That would not reoccur, so I put my length of days of 0, and then I recommend you put that delete after posting route. Anything that does not reoccur with the 0 here and delete after posting route, when you basically mark a certain week or a day as complete in our software and you advance the service schedule, those one-time stops get removed from the schedule. They get stored in the history to prove you were doing the service, but they don't remain on there at all. You don't have to remember and go back and delete anything. Now this first column is a label. So I'm labeling basically weekly just so I know that that frequency is every 7 days. You can also label this anything you want. It doesn't have to relate to the exact frequency you're setting up. So these could be labeled, maybe the weekly is the maintenance service. So I could call this frequency maintenance, and it reoccurs every 7 days. So it's whatever makes sense to you. So far, any questions on setting up the frequencies?
Nope.
I do have a question on a frequency that we're not sure how to set up. 1 week it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The next week it's a Tuesday, Thursday. So I didn't know, is that something we would just have to create a task for every day, or can we put it on a route frequency somehow? Or would that be a reoccurring task, something totally different?
I would recommend that be you're going to have to do a little bit of communication as far as how many times that customer's on the schedule. But they could be a bi-weekly for Monday, and then a bi-weekly for Wednesday, and then a bi-weekly for Friday, and then set that up for, let's say, this week.
Okay, yeah.
And then you just set them up again bi-weekly for Tuesday, Thursday for next week, and then those schedules will be alternating.
Okay, perfect.
And that brings up a good point, Charlotte, thank you, Deb. If you have a customer that you service more than once a week, maybe you service them Tuesday, Thursday, weekly, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or if you have a commercial account that you're there every day of the week, you would just simply set them up for weekly on Monday, weekly on Wednesday, and weekly on Friday for a Monday, Wednesday, Friday stop. Once we have our frequencies set up, we can now select them in the drop-down box. And before we can add a stop, the last thing we have to set up are our route technicians. So again, I'm just going to double-click in this box, and it takes me to the route, or what we call the sub-assigned list. Here we can create a general label in the first field for the route. So this could be a truck number. This could be R1 for Route 1. This could be maybe M1 for Maintenance 1, or L1 for Lawn 1, or C1 for Crew 1. Just whatever you're used to or whatever makes sense to you. I'm going to use R1 and R2 just to simply make it Route 1 and Route 2. Once I have my labels set up, I could put in my technician's name, or I could do maybe Route 1 is Truck 3. And again, these labels are very flexible, and you use whatever you need to identify that route. You can obviously put the technician's name here. I can, new field on this list, we can now put in the telephone number of that route technician. An email address. And I have been getting a lot of questions on recently how we can put in some extra information for our employees. Now, this is not new to the software. We've had this for a very long time. It's just not something I demonstrate very much. I haven't had a lot of people ask me about it. Following the theme that everything in our software is blue and underlined, then we can double-click on that. We can double-click on this route label from this screen, and it brings up a pop-up window for user details. Here I can enter in some extra information, workday length, some average work information. Some of this information feeds onto reports for how you paid the techs, commission or salary, maybe a truck payment or repairs or insurance, uniform. Allows you to keep track of some extra information here for each guy.
Hi, sorry about that. I was actually on another call. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, we're just moving on here, Nella, so if you do miss anything, you can come back and watch this, watch the video later. I'll put it online. I do have a lot of stuff I try to cover in this routing class, so I can't pause too much.
Okay, no, keep going. I keep getting phone calls. Keep going. I'm watching.
Okay.
All right.
The sort column here allows me to put these in the order I want to see them in the drop-down box on the route schedule page. And I'll show you that in just a moment. The next thing we want to set up or select is we want to basically create a routing department. That way we can separate out our different route techs, and this helps with some reporting down the road. Maybe you have different services you offer. Maybe we have a service route, and then you have maybe a delivery or pickup route, or We have a maintenance department, a irrigation or landscape department, so you could separate those on this page. To set up departments, we just double-click in that field. And I've created a simple department called routing. That's going to be my default. I'm just going to put both my techs into the routing department.
Do you have to select the default?
You do not have to select a default. As I do recommend that you do have a department selected for each one of the techs, though. You don't have to make one a default. It just aids in the data entry. So if I add a third route tech,
It's going to put in routing. Okay.
yep.
Yeah.
Now we have the next 3 fields. We don't have to use all of them. We mostly see our customers using 1 out of the 3, and this is how we can track either sales by technician, we can track invoicing or labor for these route techs. We do that either by using a QuickBooks class, a specific QuickBooks labor item assigned to that technician, or a sales rep. This way, if these guys do any invoicing that gets sent into QuickBooks, you can run QuickBooks reports, filter it by, for instance, a class called Route 1, and you would see all transactions that were done or put through from Route 1. Now, if you do a lot of service calls and you have maybe maintenance routes where you're billing for billable hours for labor time, you could create a service item in QuickBooks called Labor R1. And on the route tickets, either from the mobile devices or in the desktop software, if you want to keep track of his billable time, you would just have him add in that labor item for R1, and the quantity is how many hours to bill. We can run reports based on that item and break it down per route technician that way. It's a great way to track billable hours for techs. And again, we could also use sales rep, which functions very much like the QuickBooks class. It just depends whether or not you're truly using sales reps for a sales department that you want to keep separate from routes. In that case, I would use QuickBooks class for routes, and sales reps I would leave for my sales department.
I have a question if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually not referred to this, but it is referred to the schedule-wise. When you set up the route schedules, you know, and you have it set for whatever days, I print them out and give them out to my workers, and they fill out information for me. Now, am I able to, before, you know, I do the completion for that date and it resets it to whatever I have it set for, am I able to put notes in for that particular person that we've scheduled the route for that day?
Yes. Yep. As soon as I get through the setup, I'll demonstrate what we'll use, and that's called a route ticket, where you can enter in those notes. And I'll get there in just a moment.
Okay.
If you're using our mobile devices, the PDA username, we usually recommend you just make the same as the technician name, just to make it easy. This way, if another driver has to pick up stops for someone else, all he has to do is log in as R2. If he is Bill and I have to do a couple stops for R2, I could just log in under his username and see his schedule. One way to do it. The default warehouse allows us to track on-truck inventory. If you're not tracking inventory, you don't need to have specific warehouses or basically having each driver his own warehouse and keeping track of that sales. If you're doing more servicing, you really don't need to set up this field, but there's no harm in going ahead and just setting a default warehouse. So R1's warehouse is going to be himself, R1, same for R2. This way, down the road, if you ever get into that, you already have the necessary fields set up. I'm going to go ahead now and hit close on my route list, and I have my route technicians available for use. Now I can add a couple stops to a schedule. Now I'm going to first demonstrate just setting up on the basic route schedule first with our regular frequencies, the ones that reoccur with the length of days, and then I'll show you how we can set up the ones with the monthly selection. If you use the any of the frequencies with that monthly selection option, you may be better off just starting from the route schedule with monthly selection and setting up all the routes from this page, which we'll cover this in just a moment. So let's first set up some stops for today. So maybe we have a weekly stop. I'm going to start setting up Bill's schedule for today. And maybe this is stop 1, and I can pick a customer. I can mix and match my frequencies. So I'm just setting up the different customers that are supposed to be serviced today and whatever their frequency is. And for right now, I don't know maybe what necessarily is the best order to do these in. I'm just numbering my stops based on how I'm entering them. I'll later map this with MapPoint and have MapPoint tell me what order to do this in. So let's say Bill, or Route 1, has 3 stops on today's schedule. He's got a weekly, a bi-weekly, and a monthly. So now I need to do the same for Route 2, is set up his Wednesday schedule. I'm starting my numbering over again because I'm working with a new technician. So every time you either switch days or switch routes when you're setting up the schedule, you want to start the numbering over again for that route for that day. So now I have 3 stops on my schedule for each technician today. Real simple. This is unfortunately not the fun part. It is a bit of data entry getting this all set up. Before I go into some of the other fields that we can take advantage of to the right, let's go ahead and look at our route schedule with monthly selection and look at how we can set customers up on that schedule. I'm going to go to Route Info, Route Schedule with month selection. And you'll notice anything I set up on one route schedule is viewable on the other. So you can, if you use the monthly frequencies, manage everything from this schedule. So let's go ahead and add some Thursday stops. So I'm going to use this monthly 2 here for Bill. And this is going to be for tomorrow. I'm going to start my numbering over again and then pick a customer. Now as I look here, this schedule, the monthly 2, I probably need to set them up on a Monday or we're going to have some trouble because this monthly 2 is set to reoccur on the first Monday. So if I set them up on a Thursday, when I post my route, it's going to go to an every Monday schedule on me. So let's just set this up. Actually, let's use the third one here. The third frequency that I set up for monthly does not have an interval setting. We just know that it's an every month service. So what I can do with this is, it does show me that the months we're going to be servicing the customer, but if I want this to be maybe the last or the 4th Thursday of the months that are selected. Now each different customer on this monthly can have a different interval frequency, and it controls the 4th and then whatever the day is, Thursday of the months that are selected. So if I set up another stop with that frequency for Bill, maybe with this is for Friday, and maybe this is going to be the first, we'll set this up maybe the first Monday of the months that are selected. So again, we're using just one frequency, but each customer can have a specific interval on which they're serviced, and that's controlled again by the day of the week, the interval frequency, and the months that are selected.
So the benefit to setting it up in monthly for a monthly is just the fact that you can change your interval right there and see which months and deselect if you need to.
Exactly. And you can set up the regular stops on this schedule as well. But if we do have these monthly ones, we are going to want to use this schedule to set up those, just so we can control the individual intervals and then see the months that are selected for them. So now that we have some stops on our schedule, let's look at what we can do with the schedule and how the schedule is going to work for us. So probably the first thing we have a schedule set up, most people want to do is print out a schedule. That way they can start using the program, getting the drivers used to our printouts and how the schedule is going to work. What we call a printout for the route schedule is a route sheet. And to print a route sheet, we just go to Route Info, Print Route Sheets. Here I could select a specific schedule to print, so I could only print my schedule for Bill or only for Joe or just for Route 1 or Route 2. If I leave it blank, I could then print everyone's schedule for either one date, just like it's being shown here, or I could do a date range and maybe print everyone's schedule for the whole week. Maybe I just want Route 1 schedule for today. The standard version is a simple just listing of the stops, nothing fancy, and it is in landscape view. We do have a lot of different versions of the route sheets. Some are specific for different industries. For example, version 1 is great for notes, has general time in, time out. If you're in the pool industry, version 1 actually has chemical reading and chemical data and has the spots for that information on the side here.
Michael, can we customize these at all, or no?
We don't have the customization like we do with some of the other stuff with the route tickets or with the tasks, just because these are a little bit more complicated, and we don't want you messing up the schedule. That's the one thing that needs to be set in stone. If you want a particular look, we'd be more than happy to take a look at what you need, and then we can try to incorporate it and create a different version specific for you guys.
Okay. We're going to use version 3.
I'll just quickly go through a different version here. Version 2 has kind of like a regular portrait orientation, has all the customer's contact information, as well as the additional info fields. So where you see account type and cell phone, I've actually set those up under customer detail and additional info. So it'll print out those custom fields there, however you set them up.
I do have a question about that. I believe I requested a couple weeks ago if we could add the checklist to this one, because it's something that I use a lot, and this one is a little bit more useful than the one that we do with the checklist, because it has the time ins and outs, and also shows all the information, rather than this one only shows the first two that you personally put in, as in for the custom fields.
All our route sheets only show the two custom fields that are by default named Miscellaneous 1 and Miscellaneous 2. Other than that, I mean, right now I don't have any checklists on my schedule, so this printout with checklist is identical to version 2.
Yeah, except the version 2 has the time in and out, and this one doesn't.
Correct, and on your checklist, what you can do is add those fields onto the checklist, and that may accomplish that. We do have that on our list. We just haven't gotten to it yet, and I apologize.
No, it's fine. I just feel like on the right-hand side it would be more, you know, I mean, I guess a little bit more better because on the standard 2 one, because it's not so many pages of so much information, because the checklist already has so much that when it's to the right-hand side on the standard 2 that you just showed previously, it would save a lot of paper printing.
Yep, I understand. Yep, I'll make sure, I'll double check on that and see if we can get that.
Because that one's like perfect, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It'd be great if we could add the checklist to that, to this one right here.
Okay. The other one I want to highlight for any of our lawn landscape companies that seems popular is the version 3 with crew info. It's a condensed route schedule, arrival and departure time, as well as a place where you can track the different members on the crew.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that one too. I wish there was an option where we had, you know, the option to attach the checklist to whatever version we wanted to use instead of being technically limited just to one. I don't know if that's something that you guys can maybe do or not.
Each one of these has to be formatted correctly so it prints the right information and doesn't spill over to half a page. So if we want a version to have a checklist, we have to kind of specifically design that form to handle the checklist.
Oh, okay.
Now once we printed our schedule, the next thing that I would do and what I would kind of consider a daily procedure is we need a place that we can enter in any extra charges, billing information, any notes, and then that gets, we also need that in some sort of format that we could either then bill it to QuickBooks or just hold on to it for reporting data. The way we manage that in our software is through what we call a route ticket, and think of it as a task for your route schedule. It basically is a service slip that'll basically give you a service confirmation. If they're using the mobile devices, if you get a route ticket from the field, you know the technician has been there. So if I'm doing a paper and print system, no mobile devices, I would need to auto-generate my route tickets, or basically I could pre-create them. So I'm going to go to Route Info, Auto-Generate Route Tickets. I'm going to create my route tickets for everyone on today's schedule and go to Generate Tickets. Now what that has done is it has created my route tickets. I can either find them by going to Route Info, Route Ticket List, or simply by hitting View Tickets after I've generated them. On my route ticket list, I now have one ticket for each stop on my schedule today. So when the when the technician brings back in his paperwork with notes or comments, anything we want to keep track of, all we have to do is double click on the order number, which is blue and underlined. All the customer information is pre-filled out for me. I can then adjust the arrival and departure time on when the tech got there. Maybe he was there at 8 and he left at 8:30. I can put in any comments or notes. I also can bill out any extra services. So if there's anything I need to charge for, let's say when we were there, the customer requested that we do a little something extra, so maybe I need to bill out some extra labor, maybe 20 minutes. Route tickets also have additional info. Here you have up to 30 customizable fields that you can set to track through drop-down boxes some information. So here's what you can customize, and this is what we can use to track some of the information coming back from the technician. So if I want to set a field name, I just hit Edit Field Names. And let's say we want to track, maybe does this customer need a follow-up? I could then area treated. And then any fields I don't need, I can take out the label for. Just take out the number. When I hit close here, I'm going to go ahead and just close this route ticket and reopen it so we can see the changes. Now we have our custom field set. And these are drop-down boxes which the data I type gets saved. So if I type in yes, add it to the list, I could then type in no, add that to the list. Now I have a quick selection. Needs a follow-up, yes or no?
Michael, I have a quick question on this route ticket.
Mm-hmm.
For the line items, when it's a routed thing, it should already show in there what was done, right? Like, let's say holding tank and disposal fee. That'll automatically pop up if it's selected on the route in this route ticket?
The only way this is pre-filled, and that was going to kind of lead into where I was going to show you next, is how we can put services or pricing in and have that auto-populate on these tickets to ease billing. And I think, just based on what I remember working with you, Charlotte, I think we went into customer pricing and we set up
the pricing and put the frequency in, so that's beside the customer. So that should automatically populate this field then, right?
Correct. And that's a great point. A lot of our lawn and landscape companies use this as well. So let me go ahead and demonstrate that. And what
when you do, I'm sorry. When you do, can you really quickly show me how you made that route ticket again?
I went to route info, and actually I will, if you give me just a moment, I'm going to auto-generate another set of tickets.
Okay.
So you'll see it here in just a moment. What I think this may help for you as well, Nella, is let's look at Route 2 for tomorrow. Let me just set a couple stops up here for, I'm going to change a couple of these for tomorrow. I've already created my tickets for today. So I've got 3 stops for tomorrow. And let's say for these customers we're either doing a weekly service, or this is a irrigation check, or we're doing you're doing your lawn service, and if you charge your customers per service, or in Charlotte's case, if you're charging them for pumping out a holding tank, or any type of grease trap service, something like that, we can automate the billing by having the route tickets automatically having the pricing item you're going to use for billing populate on them. To do that, I would first go to customer details. So I'm just going to double click the customer right here. Go to pricing. I'm going to edit my pricing, and let's say this is a grease trap service, or this is a holding tank service, or this is a weekly lawn service. And this customer we maybe charge $30 a cut or $30 a week, and they're weekly. I'm going to just make sure that I do have them matching the right frequency for their service. If you do not select the right frequency when you're setting up their pricing, that line item will not be included. So then I can go to my next customer, pricing, edit. Let's say they get the same weekly service, but they're bi-weekly, so they maybe get $20 a cut, and they're done bi-weekly.
While you're in this section where you go to additional info, and you select the service type they are, you know, for the checklist-wise. For some odd reason, I'm not sure if this is normal, whenever I made the schedule, those didn't automatically pop up. I actually had to put them in there myself, even though it's set up in the checklist section for the customer.
This works for tasks. If you create a task checklist here, it'll auto-populate on the task.
Okay, sorry about that. It was just a quick question because I saw you in there.
And then my last customer is, again, weekly, so I'm going to go to pricing. Let me get out some other stuff in here. Get out this first line item. And maybe they are $35 a week. So now that I have my pricing set up, I need to, what I would do to create my route tickets is I have to auto-generate my route tickets. Go to Route Info, auto-generate route tickets. I then want to create the tickets for tomorrow, for everyone on tomorrow's schedule, so I'm going to leave everything else blank. I am going to have the option to include the customer pricing items when that's selected, as long as the frequency matches the customer's frequency on the date you're generating the tickets for. That pricing item will carry over. So now I'm going to hit Generate Tickets. Now when I click View Tickets, it's going to take me to my route ticket list. And again, Nella, you can get to this list by clicking the route info at the top and then going to Route Ticket List. After you've auto-generated, you will see the tickets you just created. So right here, I see I auto-generated for the 25th. So I see my 3 tickets I created. And if I double-click on the order number, it takes me into the ticket, and the customer's pricing item is automatically included with their specific price for their service. And this is where I could adjust the arrival and departure time based on the technician's paperwork, as well as type in any comments they have. So all my tickets here have the correct custom pricing for their service. Or in your case, Charlotte, they will have the whatever their pricing is for that holding tank service.
Yeah.
Now I can send these as individual invoices to QuickBooks, which is nice. If I need to bill at the time of service or right after service, I can invoice these right away, email them to the customers from QuickBooks, and I have the invoice in QuickBooks ready to accept payment. If you bill at the end of the month, I can right from this list hit Post One Day to QuickBooks. Anything that hasn't been billed is going to be on this list. So if you, I know it says Post One Day, but if you do it at the end of the month, everything that hasn't been billed for is going to show up from the route tickets, everybody's weekly service. If a customer is on the schedule, you know, if you service them weekly and they're, you know, they'll have more than one ticket here. They'll have one, they'll probably have 4, one for each service if they're weekly. These get combined in QuickBooks into one invoice for the same customer, and it carries over the service date, which is really cool. So you will see the date of the service itemized out on the QuickBooks invoice for each one of these line items.
So if we post them to QuickBooks, Michael, it automatically generates the invoice in QuickBooks, or no, then the invoicing person would then have to do it?
No, that posting to QuickBooks does just that. It creates that invoice right then and there in QuickBooks, which I'll send these to QuickBooks as soon as I get into the right one here.
Okay. Right.
So now let's say I'm doing my end of the month billing. Let's say I'm billing for April. So I'm going to put in the date range I'm billing for, or if you're billing at the end of the week, you would just put in the date range you want to bill for. The posting date is the date you want on the QuickBooks invoice. So you can even do this ahead of time and you know, I'm running billing for the month on the 24th, but I want it to look like I did it on the 30th. Then I hit Post to QuickBooks. Everything disappears, letting me know it's been posted to QuickBooks. And when I hit Close on this screen, everything that was billed for gets marked posted to QuickBooks. We know that was allocated for. Now these tickets were not on that screen, and if you're wondering why they didn't go to QuickBooks or show up when we posted them, it's because they had no billable line items. So our software just excludes them. Now I can go into QuickBooks. I'm going to go look at one of the invoices I just sent over. I believe it was this customer here on the 30th. And we serviced her twice this month, so it puts in the dates that we serviced her, the 24th and the 25th, and then the specific amount, $35.
So the ones in the route schedule that you showed said posted to QuickBooks, so that we know that they got sent. How long do they stay in the route schedule?
These route tickets will stay here forever.
So can we filter then? We can just do a filter for the non-posted to QuickBooks so that we don't have to look?
Yeah, you can just filter excluding selection and see just that. Or if you're only working in, let's say we're now in May, you can put in your date range, May 5th through the 31st, and only see those tickets. These tickets are very, very important to keep. Don't try to delete them, because when we go into route reports, it's based on route tickets. So all those tickets are what populate a lot of stuff on our reports.
Now, when you create those route tickets, do they have a different version to print out than technically whenever you're printing out the route schedule?
Yeah, you can.
Is there different versions to choose from?
You can, when you go to auto-generate tickets, after you generate, you can print individual tickets or almost individual work orders that represent those tickets. We do have different versions, and the default, if I go look for the ones that I printed for, this is how you give the technician an invoice to deliver at the time of service. So if I auto-generate my tickets and I go down to print, with the default, I get an invoice for every customer on my schedule that I could deliver.
Okay.
You can also, let me close this. We have a 3-part version, which is a nice one. You have a top half, which is an office copy. The middle part is a customer copy that the lower section they could tear off as a remit to send back with payment. Now all this information on here, like this is designed for pest control, but all this information is customizable. On this screen, double click. These are just text boxes, so it's just like creating your checklists. You can customize everything that prints out on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Right within the program. And we also have the Word template. So I could print using a custom Word template. This allows me to put something with my logo on it, have color. It'll print right to a Word document, pre-fill all the customer information, weekly service amounts.
Now, is there a way you can print an active route schedule list or Excel it at least?
Yeah, from the route schedule, I can just right-click and export to Excel, and that'll take everything on my route schedule and put it into Excel.
Okay.
And the last option we have on our route tickets is a modified invoice. Where it combines the services for the same customer into one invoice if they had multiple tickets for that day. Now I'm already over right at our hour mark, but I do want to quickly demonstrate how we can just simply map a quick route. And that's unfortunately all I'll have time for today, but I do want to at least show you that in the video. So I'm going to go to my route schedule, and let's say I want to map the stops for Route 1 for today. So I'm selecting the assigned to, the assigned date, so it's going to map these 3 stops for me. And then just hit map. Map point will open up, and I do have, I guess, a bad address or maybe a blank address. For the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to remove that from the route, just so we can see what a true route would look like if we had all our addresses correct. I then can bring up my route planner, make the starting location or my company also the ending location. Route has changed. Click this line to get directions. So about 6 miles and 14 minutes if I were to drive it straight. Then I can hit optimize in the lower left-hand corner. And it redoes my directions for me. You have a lot of power within MapPoint. I do recommend that you take some time and go through MapPoint's resources on how to use the program, because once we've mapped a route, we can split it up into territories, maybe for different sales guys. You can then have MapPoint. This is a real cool feature that I just found out about. I could hit nearby places. They have all sorts of businesses, companies, commercials, commercial accounts. You can have MapPoint plot based by territory, nearby locations that maybe you would service. Give that to your sales guys to go get new accounts. I did this yesterday for a private training with one customer that they do medical waste pickup. We mapped doctors' offices and hospitals within a 50-mile radius of one of her routes. She had 150 locations that she did not have as current active customers that are now she can call on as leads, all just through MapPoint. I mean, it can be very beneficial. MapPoint can also plot residential sectors, help you for targeted marketing. We don't ever get into that specific. That's why I recommend you utilize MapPoint's resources. It can be, by itself, huge benefit to your business. I do have to kind of come to a hard stop here. I do appreciate everyone coming to the routing and mapping class. I will get this online as soon as I can. A lot of the other videos, I do go into a little bit more detail on how we can run the billing with the routes and some of the other fields for route notes and checklists and the stop pay and route pay amounts. Feel free to browse or watch some of our other routing and mapping classes for that extra information. I look forward to seeing everyone in this afternoon's class.
Thanks, Michael.
No problem. Take care.